This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello and welcome to yet another instalment of your favourite ramble through the wreckages of art, science and history. Every episode we pluck tasty and tantalising topics from the tree of knowledge, blend them up with our concentrated idiocy, and serve them to you, the silently judgmental listener. I'm Chris and I'll be one of your hosts this evening, as your ears drink in this potable portion of pulverised playfulness. Do not, under any circumstances, try the veal. We have no specials, but we do have a second co-host. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it a monstrous hybrid of the two? No, it's Alan Johnson! It's Alan Johnson! It's Secretary of State for Home Department between 2009 and 10! Alan Johnson! Oh wait, no, it's Chris.
Hello, I'm not Alan Johnson.
For that, we may both be grateful.
Indeed.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm alright. I'm glad we're doing this show, not The Masked Singer, which seems like the cultural low point of Western civilization.
You think that now, but we can always get lower.
Yeah, we can always have celebrity. Whose spoon is this?
I was going to go like Masked Singer, and you have to guess who it is by the ball sack.
Who would be on... First of all, who would be the judge or judges, and whose career is going so badly that they would gladly be a part of whose celebrity ball sack is this?
Well, I don't know who the judges would be, but to be fair, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of celebrities who would do anything to cling on to fame. I mean, like, people go on I'm a Celebrity and have to eat, like,
kangaroo anuses,
bugs and kangaroo anus and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, once you're doing that, I mean, how much further can you go down?
Yeah, there'll be some Big Brother contestant from 15 years ago who'd gladly get the bits out on TV again. So by comparison, this show is pretty highbrow. And here, if you're not already hip to the groovy vibe of our meandering musings, is how the podcast works. Each episode, each of us two entirely different Chris's offer up two tempting topics to chew over. In the past, we've explored Egypt, speculated on Socrates, and stared deep into Uranus. I'm noticing a theme for this episode already. So, Chris, what's your first informative topic?
So, Chris, for my first topic, I want to talk to you about one of the lesser-known actions of the American War of Independence, or the American Revolution, or whatever you want to call it. I'd like to say it's topical, because Hamilton's big at the moment. It's tenuous at best. So, just want to know, have you seen Hamilton?
No.
It just came out on Disney Plus the other week. Anyway.
Is it any good? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, it's
good. As a person who doesn't like musicals?
Yeah, no, it's good, but I don't get what all the hype is, if you know what I mean. Like, it's good. Like,
it's fine.
No, like, it was enjoyable and everything, but I just don't understand why it became the musical that has, like, sold out around the world and is, like, the talk of the... You know, like, everybody's heard of it, even if you've never heard of any other musicals. I don't know why that one, rather than, like, any other musical. As good as it is. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, because this character I'm talking about, I don't think appears in Hamilton at all. But
okay.
But he was around at the same time, fighting for the same side.
Tenuous at best.
Tenuous. So, got to talk about a man called John Paul Jones. Originally born in Scotland, and then he moved down to Whitehaven, which is on the English coast, so northwest England. Moved down there, and then he became a sailor, joined like the merchant navy or whatever. And so this was all happening in the 1700s. Then, what happened was he got in trouble for a wee bit of murder.
Just a wee bit, not a whole spree.
No. Supposedly it was self-defense against a mutinous sailor. But either way, I don't know how accurate that is, or whether or not he just did a bit of the old shanking and then tried to cover it up, because his next actions were to flee the British Isles and run away to the American colonies, which not exactly the actions of a
innocent man, no.
Innocent man, but, you know, who knows? Yeah, maybe he did feel he needed to. Oh yeah, apparently as well. So his original name was just John Paul, and then he added Jones to the end of it as part of his amazing disguise. Who's John Paul? No idea. I'm John Paul Jones. So I mean, the problem is, like, my source for this. I've got a few sources for this. Like, it's broadly true, but like the one I'm just like using as my crib thing for this is from the History Channel website, and they're clearly trying to whitewash this because, like I say, they're the ones that say it was a mutinous sailor, which again may or may not have been. And then afterwards, it's like, so like I say, he's fled to Americas at this point, and then the War of Independence was breaking out, and so he joins the American side. And the problem is, it's like Jones. This is from the website. Jones, who could easily recall Britain's cruel treatment of the Scots, sided with the colonists. And it's like, you're really trying to be like, Britain was really, really evil. It seems to forget that Scotland's part of Britain. Like, the Scots were the Brits at this point. The sort of thing where, like, Scotland, as much as they, like... I know England obviously fucked Scotland around a lot and stuff in history, but, like, it does turn out the Scots did get quite on board with the whole colonising thing as well. So anyway, John Paul Jones now is a captain in the fledgling US Navy, and basically had an idea which I like to think was just incredibly petty rather than anything else. He decided to launch an attack on Britain in Britain, take the fight to Britain. So, of all the places to attack, he decided to attack Whitehaven, his old home. Which is why I think this is just incredibly petty.
Yeah, he's just settling scores at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if Whitehaven was a particularly important strategic town at this stage.
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes and he gets a ship and he sails off towards Britain for a sneak attack. And he gets to Whitehaven, and then he's got this plan. So at the bay, you've got like a little fort, like either side of the harbour type thing, overlooking it. And so the plan was split into two teams. One team goes to like the fort on one side, and one goes to the one on the other. And like I say, I really don't think it was a particularly like important strategic town. Like, it had a bunch of ships there, but like I think it was a fairly lightly defended port.
Yeah, it's not like attacking Liverpool.
Yeah, it had ships there, but like merchant ships, but it wasn't like a navy base or anything. So anyway, his plan, so he splits up into two teams, and they sneak onto the shore. One side, goes up to one side of the bay, one goes to the other. So Jones led the attack, took the fort, and destroyed the cannons, and then set stuff on fire. And they were like, great. And then they're like, why is the other side not on fire? But at this point, like, obviously the British are coming and stuff, so they skedaddle. They get back to the boat, and eventually the other team turn up. And what happened was the second team had gone to the pub instead and didn't actually do any attacking. Just staggered back drunk later. I guess they'd been at sea for how many weeks did it take to sail from America to Britain in them days, and they were just like, as soon as they saw a pub, they were just like, fuck it.
It shows what sort of how sort of invested they were in the mission, like the whole time, on the way over there, JPJ's planning, strategizing, and they're thinking, I cannot wait for a pint. Oh, do you think they got pork scratchings as well? Oh, have a nice ploughman's lunch.
So 50% success, like I say, and a bunch of drunk sailors. But then that was only stage one of his petty plan. So like I say, he's attacked Whitehaven, where he used to live, and then, I said he was Scottish originally. Off he sailed up to Scotland, Kirkcudbright. And his plan was to kidnap the Earl of Selkirk and then ransom him back, basically. So they went there, went to his home, and nobody was in. So they just stole all his silverware instead, including the teapot.
I thought you were going to say that they decided to go to the pub. That's it's less of a sort of coastal raid and more just like an aquatic pub crawl.
Yeah, and that was it. Then off he went back to America and carried on the war. Apparently, he's considered one of the fathers of the US Navy. I guess he's like a Nelson to them or something. I mean, I think he had a lot more successful raids than those, as the war went on, but we at Cooking with Grief don't focus on success. We focus on glorious failure.
It is definitely an interesting tactic when there's definitely much more sort of strategic and important battles he could have taken part in. I don't know, maybe on the North American continent where stuff was going down, but it's like, you guys have got, we're playing an away game. Mm-hmm. We're going to hit specifically Whitehaven and Selkirk. And they're like, right, okay, not only have we not heard of any of those places, they have no bearing on this war whatsoever. I'm off, I'm going, we're sailing away.
Exactly.
What do you think pub snacks were like back then?
Salty.
I mean, they still are to this day. But
exactly. salted meat. I mean, well, crisps hasn't been invented then, had they? So wouldn't have had any of them.
No, probably not peanuts either.
No, I was going to say, where do peanuts even grow? Aren't they quite far away?
Probably bread and meat and salted meat, like you say. Cheese, maybe.
Oh, apparently tapas, obviously not in northwest England, but tapas in Spain came about. Well, there's a few competing theories as to why it came about, but like one of the theories was like the king of Spain at the time was basically sick of people getting so drunk, so it's like, right, every time you give somebody a drink, they also have to be given some food to try and soak up some of the alcohol, and then that's how tapas came about. So yeah, anyway, that's how we have massively dumbed down the story of one of America's founding heroes.
At least we're honest about it.
Yeah, well, we'll make a musical about him, and then we'll be golden. We'll be rich beyond our wildest dreams. Jean-Paul Jones.
In a French accent for some reason.
Well, the French were involved in the American Revolution quite heavily, weren't they? They saw a chance to fuck up Britain and were like, well, we can't pass up on that.
Yeah, because I know like Benjamin Franklin went to France for aid, and then 2 years later they sent someone else after him, and he'd just been like drinking and womanizing and like not really getting part of the mission. So maybe that's it, man. Any opportunity to get away from the
colonies.
Yeah, and you're like, oh yeah, that thing. It's just something about that long journey makes you completely forget where you're going in the first place.
So yeah, that's my first topic done. Okay, so that's my first topic out of the way. Chris, what's yours?
We've talked a lot about, in the past, mythology from, China and ancient Greece and Egypt. How clued up are you on Irish mythology?
Not very, I'll be honest.
It's interesting that, given that geographically we here in England are so close, that we don't know more about it, whereas we learn more about, say, ancient Egypt than we do about Irish mythology.
I know in the last topic we said about how Scotland were Brits and stuff at that stage. I feel like the Irish really got the short end of the stick from British imperialism.
Yeah, why we've sort of shut down all mythology about them. Every day I walk through my village on the way to work, and every day twice a day, I pass a house, and like some houses have got names rather than numbers. Mm-hmm. I pass a house called Tir na Nog.
Oh, I have heard of that, but only because of a song by the Rubber Bandits about riding a horse instead of driving a car. Carry on.
Yeah, we'll get there. So I didn't know what it meant. I thought it might be Welsh, but rather than go up and knock on the door and ask, because no one wants a sort of a grumpy-looking skinhead knocking on the door, particularly in lockdown, I just Googled it, as is my want. So Tir na Nog, meaning the land of the young, is a Celtic otherworld, described as an island paradise of eternal youth, beauty, and health. In the mythological tales, heroes visit the island by entering ancient burial mounds and crossing the plain of honey across the sea, a path that's created when the sun hits the water. So yes, it was a mythological place, and it's said to be ruled by gods who were the first ancestors to humans and populated with beautiful women and brave warriors of old. It's described as a lovely place with flowery meadows, but it is dangerous for the heroes who travel there. And the tales often involve the heroes becoming trapped or tricked there into staying for longer than they intended.
Is it a paradise island, though, you're saying?
Yeah, it's just like another realm, I guess.
I was just thinking, like, of all the places to be tricked into staying longer, I mean, I can think of worse. It's like being tricked at staying longer at Disneyland. Like, it's like, I didn't mean to, but, as far as these things go, it's not bad.
It's like, oh no, it's a beautiful island populated with gorgeous women. Oh no, what a terrible fate.
Yeah. Was it Odysseus who gets trapped on an island full of beautiful women, and it counts as one of his trials and tribulations. It's like, I feel like you might have just enjoyed the detour.
Oh, what a tribulation. What an arduous journey that is. Well, I suppose it's why the joke in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where they take refuge in like the nunnery.
Oh yeah.
We must stay for the oral sex. No, we must leave. So Tir na Nog is described most notably in the mythological tale of Oisin and Niamh, in which a mortal man falls in love with a woman of the other world. She brings him to Tir na Nog on a magical horse, hence the Rubber Bandit song, that can cross the ocean. He spends 3 years there, but eventually becomes homesick. Again, as we pointed out, why would you if you
trapped on to be fair.
Yeah, but if you say like, oh, you can have a 3-year holiday, in the destination of your choice, I'm not going to be itching to get back. But anyway, so he spends 3 years there, but eventually becomes homesick and longs to return to Ireland. Niamh reluctantly allows him safe passage back on her horse, but warns him to never touch the mortal ground again. Which, if you're sending them back on a horse, is quite a big ask. Like, you can't live the rest of your life on a horse. And if I've said that once, I've said it twice now. So he does return and discovers 3 centuries have passed in the mortal realm, as he can't live on a horse all his life and inevitably touches the ground. He instantly ages as the 300 years he's been away catch up with him, and he dies as an old man. Because would it really be a mythological story if it didn't have an abrupt, bleak ending? Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the Odyssey before, because the tales are really similar to a lot of ancient Greek mythology, adaptations of the Odyssey, or even the sort of Norse mythology of Asgard, a beautiful place beyond the mortal realm for heroes who have proved themselves and whatnot. The story of Oisin and Niamh itself bears resemblance to mythological stories all over the world. There's a Japanese folktale of Urashima Taro, in which a fisherman rescues a turtle and is transported to the Dragon Palace, again a sort of mythical realm, and falls in love with a princess called Otohime. Eventually he returns to his village and has been gone for 100 years. And then before he left, Princess gave him this jewellery box. He looks inside and it ages him 100 years.
It's a terrible deal.
Big gift. There's the story of King Herla, a legendary king of the ancient Britons, who visits the other world to return 200 years later when the land's been conquered by the Anglo-Saxons. So it's, and across lots of different cultures, there's always a story of someone going to a mythical realm and coming back, and time has moved in a different way. So yeah, it's a common tale with recurring themes through humanity's folklore, I guess. All stories are about a journey, and you can see how genesis of it is, through like oral storytelling. It's about someone going away to a far place. Just
sort of on a sort of broader note, like it is weird how like many myths and legends are pretty much the same across cultures and stuff. And I don't know if it's, like the tales were already there before humans started spreading, or if there's just something about humans that look to the same thing. We have the same base desires or whatever, and then we make the stories to sort of fit them. I
mean, I suppose like on a sort of pre-civilization level, when humans were wandering tribes, and then when the tribes get too big, people splinter off, and that's how we travelled all over the world. You can imagine that in terms of storytelling, the people left behind to tell the stories, they're going to ask about what happened to the group who went off. And if you don't know, then you make up a story about how they went off to find a land which you imagine is better than the one you're currently in. So I guess the sort of, if that's the seed of it.
Imagine how different human civilization would have turned out if people could have just said, I have no idea. Like, instead of feeling I need to make up stuff. It's like, how's the sun work? And instead of people being like, no idea. Study it, I guess, or we'll work it out. Everyone was just like, yeah, so, well, obviously it's a god. Like, that goes without saying. I'm going to say chariot. Chariot that's on fire. No, it's a dragon. Oh, okay, yeah, obviously, sorry, it's a dragon. It's like all these different... Where does it go at night? Well, obviously it gets eaten by a giant.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, just imagine people like, I don't know. Where's the world come from? Well, clearly it was made in 7 days. No. Could have just said, don't know really. It's just always been here as long as I've known. Like, no, really.
I don't know, eat your soup.
Yeah, just imagine how different humanity's journey could have been.
If you just told it to them straight. So, these little kids saying like, the people that left our village, where did they go? They're probably dead. Yes. Honestly, like, there's monsters out in the wood, and statistically, what statistics? Never mind, eat your soup.
I saw something online about, Polynesian people, when they were getting, spreading around all these Pacific islands, and like how they were able to navigate and stuff like that from like the sun and wave patterns and all types of stuff. Really clever stuff. But at the same time, like, they were still basically, like, especially like the first ones, you were jumping in a boat and you were just kind of hoping that if you kept going this way, you'd hit another island before you ran out of food and water. And it's just like...
Yeah. Pick a direction and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's like mad.
If you went south, you're dead. If you went north, you'll find Asia.
Like the first person who ever crossed the sea where you couldn't see the other side, he must just have been like, well, hope I don't die.
I can't remember what it's called. That bit of land that used to link Siberia to North America.
Oh, yeah.
The people that travel to that, and then the land disappears, and they go, well, I guess we're
here now.
I make it sound like it happened in a day, like they walked across and then they turn around and it's gone.
God, that bloody hell.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like, well, that is one option that is no longer available to us. Hope you like whale blubber.
I was doing something else about myths, and how sort of local geography basically impacted the types of gods people believed in. So, obviously, like, in Britain, I've never heard of, like, there might have been one, but, like a Celtic rain god or whatever. Because it's not really something you need to worry about in Britain. Like, you don't need to pray for rain because it's going to rain. Like, you know what I mean?
You need to pray for it to stop.
Yeah, like, it's never really been a big concern of people on these islands is when the next rainfall is going to be. Like, it's coming. There's other factors that you got to worry about, destroying your crops and harvest, but like lack of rain isn't going to be one of them. And they were saying stuff about how like the Egyptian gods were quite benign, like, and benevolent as long as you like sort of played by the rules. And they're saying like that's because like the Nile floods really quite like clockwork every year. Around the same time of year, it floods, and it floods pretty much the same amount out from the banks, and that's why like then Egypt was like one of the most fertile regions in the ancient world for like growing crops and stuff because of all this. And so like basically their gods were sort of like, yeah, you say the right things and you follow the rules, like you're golden, they'll look after you. You know, like, just stick to the rules and they're...
maintaining a status quo.
Yeah. Whereas, like, it was saying the gods in Mesopotamia, I think it was, where the rivers sometimes flood, sometimes don't, sometimes they flood a lot and too much and they destroy everything you've, like, like, there was never really any set pattern. Like you say, like, sometimes they flood just enough so that all your farmland gets nice and fertilised. Sometimes they flood so much that your entire village is destroyed. Like, I'm saying about how their gods were basically like capricious dickheads. Like, you pray to them, they might be on your side. They might not. You better pray to them because if you're not, they'll definitely fuck you up. But like, if you do, yeah, they might still fuck you up. Like, they're basically much more brutal and sort of like, yeah, well, good luck, I guess, and being much more into like, yeah, vicious sacrifices and that type of thing. I think it might have been the Assyrians this was about, but I might be wrong.
I suppose it definitely makes sense. You get somewhere like Japan that is A, isolated, and B, prone to natural disasters. Why so many of the sort of Shinto gods would be so, I suppose, like you say, sort of capricious, you know?
Mm-hmm. So like the whole thing with monotheism and stuff like that all sort of came about sort of like as part of the move towards like agriculture. Because then we needed humans to be the ones that were sort of chosen by the gods or God to be in charge, because that was now the natural order of things. Like humans looked after animals and blah blah blah. So we needed to be the like important ones, and that's when it became more like hierarchical compared to like other religions of like more hunter-gatherer type situations, but more nomadic ones where gods, where humans weren't particularly special because humans weren't. If you're sort of more nomadic and stuff like that, like you're part of the landscape as much as everything else.
Yeah, you're a part of it, not the sort of controlling factor in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's just interesting how like the gods we create seem to be a reflection of. I mean, it makes sense, but like, yeah, it's only when somebody pointed out that you like, I know, that you notice or really see it, and you're like, oh yeah, it does make sense that like the gods we create were the ones that sort of fit our situation. And like I say, you're not worried about a rain god in a wet and windy island, but you might be worried about like, I don't know, like the wind god to make sure that your ships don't blow off course when you're trading or whatever.
Yeah, or gods of the sea, or yeah. So as much as we're told that we're made in God's image, it's more that gods are made in our collective images.
It's why I quite like, if I was to believe in anything, I think I kind of go towards the sort of Greek Roman type things, because I like how their gods are just basically bastards with superpowers. Like,
yeah,
you can sort of understand them, like with like. Like Christianity, you've got the whole thing where, like, God, you got the whole fallacy where it's like, well, God's, if he's all powerful, then you can't be all loving because there's evil in the world and so on and so forth. And you got all these things where you got to try and explain it. Whereas, like, Zeus is just a bellend. Like, so you can sort of just be like, why is evil in the world? Well, Zeus is a dick. Like,
yeah, Zeus was feeling like being a cock that day.
Zeus wanted to get laid, so he killed somebody's husband and, like, took her
turned
away.
Himself into a horny swan.
Yeah, it's like, well, I suppose that does make sense.
Yeah. And also, what's interesting with the Greeks is that you see that big hill there? Yeah. The one we could quite easily climb, yeah? They all live up there. And I'm going to go, no.
I did wonder that. Like,
that's where they live.
Yeah. Like, choosing a natural mountain that you can see and being like, yep, God's up there. I feel like it's a bit like like just going back to, was it Turn the Nog?
Yeah.
It's like, to get there, the sun has to hit the ocean at the right time, and then you walk along and it's basically like, it's impossible to get there. Literally pointing to a mountain next to next to where you live, and being like, up there. Be like, oh, well, why don't we go?
Well, I'm busy. So that's the end of my first topic. Chris, what have you got for your second?
Well, kind of going back to a topic we talked about before, but that's human evolution. So remember a few episodes ago we talked about how humans have re-evolved a pointless bone in the knee that does absolutely nothing and is just, pointless.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, it's a detriment. There is also some human evolution going on in the world that's, like, useful.
Prehensile tail? I've got my fingers crossed.
No, not that useful.
Mm.
And this won't apply to us or anybody we know, unfortunately. There's people called, and I'm probably going to butcher this pronunciation, but the Bajau people, Bajau, so apologies to anybody who knows how that's pronounced if I'm doing it wrong. And they live in Southeast Asia. They're, the people who free dive and
like all the villages
swim down
on stilts.
Yeah, and they swim down and collect oysters or whatever, like that type of thing. But yeah, the ones you see on TV where they're like walking on the seabed type thing.
Yeah.
What they're famous for is the fact that they can hold their breath for up to 13 minutes. I mean, a normal person can hold their breath for like 2 minutes or something. Scientists have been looking and, wondering like whether or not it's something that like, pretty much anybody could learn or whether or not they've evolved to it. And what they found is they do, in fact, have an advantage. They have a larger spleen, like a much larger spleen than most people. It helps them with oxygen deprivation and basically can store red blood cells that have oxygen in them. So basically it's like having like an extra reserve of oxygen, inside you. So it's 50% larger than like most people's. Lets them basically swim under water and hold the breath for 13 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
I do this thing, so my girlfriend's always worried that, like, she always hits me when I'm doing this, like, because I don't notice. I, like, hold my breath when I'm, like, reading and stuff like that. And she always hits me because she's always worried that one day I'm going to forget to breathe and just keel over and die. And I swear, sometimes she'll hold her breath when she sees me do it. Like I say, I don't even notice. I'd literally just be reading and just be like, and like whatever, like I don't even notice. And sometimes she'll hold her breath like alongside to basically highlight how ridiculous this is, and she'll be like, "For God's sake, breathe!" And like I don't even notice. Honestly, I'm probably only doing it for about 30 seconds. 13 minutes is a really long time to like not breathe.
Yeah, the only time I think that I purposely hold my breath is when like walking up a slight incline, and if you're passing someone on the street and you don't want to let on how out of breath you are just from the simple act of walking. Like, no, just normal person with a normal lung capacity who's not struggling to, gently perambulate.
Like when you swim underwater, if you try and like do like width of the swimming pool underwater or something, I think most people would really struggle to do a length underwater.
Yeah.
That's like not very long.
Because I say it's not just that they're going underwater and holding their breath, but they're swimming, carrying stuff, like exerting.
Yeah.
So is it just successive generations of doing it that has led to these advantages in spleen technology?
Yeah, I think so. The better you are at holding the breath, I guess, the longer you'll live and the more better you survive doing this. So they have kids who have bigger spleens and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's mad. Apparently there's also like similar things with people who live in high altitude.
Yeah.
Like societies that live right up the Andes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird because, like, again, because Britain's so flat, like, we take the mick out of, like, Holland and stuff for being flat, but, like, what we call mountains, a lot of other countries would probably just call hills. I told you when I went on holiday in, like, to Italy, and we wanted to go up this mountain on a cable car, and, like, it wasn't even, like, we knew it was the biggest mountain in the area, but they didn't really make any, like, big fuss of it. And then we found out that whilst at the bottom, it was like 10 degrees. Up at the top, it was -7. We were woefully underdressed for it. And then when I Googled it, it turns out it was bigger than Ben Nevis. We talk about mighty Ben Nevis, the great mountain or whatever. And then here in Italy, it's not even a mountain taller than it isn't even like barely worth acknowledging as like,
not even impressive.
Yeah. Well, at one point I was looking and seeing what it'd be like, to go to Peru. I was looking at like holidays and how to get there and stuff like that. And like, it was like you had to take like 3 flights to get there or something, but like it also was like recommending that like you should basically write off your first couple of days because the altitude, you're so high up. Like, and it's like a major city, but you're so high up that you get oxygen deprivation basically. It takes you like a few days to acclimatise. It's just like just in Britain, you just never think about ever being high enough where the oxygen levels matter. And then here is like they've got cities up mountains high enough where you got to be like, you basically got to write it off your first couple of days because they're like, yeah, you're just going to be sick for 2 days, like, until you get used to it. And even like in America, like, you know, Denver, I saw things like NFL players, like, you know, sickle cell, where you get like some of your blood cells are like the wrong shape so they don't carry as much oxygen. Mm-hmm. There's a few NFL players who have sickle cell and they can't play in Denver because it's too high up. Their bodies are fine at like sea level or whatever, and they can get enough oxygen as they need, but like if they go to Denver and they're already struggling for oxygen, their bodies just aren't going to handle it, so they just can't play there. It's just like, they're just things you don't think about when we're in like a pretty, like Britain's just pretty medium, like just medium sized, medium weather, medium like altitudes, and
medium ambition.
It's just like not much in the way of extremes, is there? Like in Britain, you never really think about it. Like it's never that cold and it's never that hot. You know, like it's just sort of middling.
Even the wildlife there's nothing like venomous or particularly dangerous. It's just a bit damp most of the year. Oh,
have you seen they're reintroducing wild bison into Kent? Apparently,
right? Okay, isn't Kent pretty urbanised these days?
Probably.
Just like let them into Blue Water shopping centre and run them up. Nature returning.
Yeah, I don't know why they chose Kent, to be fair, but
no. And how long ago did they have bison? I mean, that's, you know, we've moved on. If it was like the Highlands of Scotland, fair enough. But
as long as nobody gets the idea to reintroduce bears, like I'm good. Introduce anything back, just not the bears. I like living in a bear-free island.
Yeah, quite often I'm sat outside and I go, no bears again.
See, you say that. Like, you know, I've seen things online where people just casually talking about bears in the garden, like in America. Places, you know, like rooting for the bins. You know, the same way, like, we have foxes root for our bins in Britain.
Yeah.
Like, well, they're just casually, you know, and it's not a big deal, because, like, oh no, a fox has got through the bins, but you never really worried that the fox is going to kill you. Yeah, and they talk about it like the same thing. I see on Twitter and stuff, people just casually talking the same way we talk about foxes, just like, oh yeah, so there's a bear going through my bin last night. It's like, a what? Like, a bear? A bear? Like, a deadly, grisly, big teeth bear? Like, yeah, no big deal. Just leave them alone and they wander off.
It's like snakes. Like, where I used to live, you'd occasionally see like grass snakes in the summer, which are like tiny and scared of humans and in no way able to harm you. The idea of, but even that like freaked me out a bit as a kid.
Oh, we do have adders in Britain. I've never, like, down where I used to live, down south, there were signs and stuff like in, went to the forests, you know, warning against adders. And they're deadly, I think. I feel like in rare cases they can be deadly.
They've got a gun.
But anyway, that is the tale of human evolution anyway. But we massively go off topic and talk about snakes with guns.
Oh yeah, when you see
like Metal Gear Solid.
I like that. Yeah, when you said like anyway, and then I thought, oh, I could like, you know, I'm used to it now that I know you were trying to like bring it back around and wrap up your topic. I was like just frantically thinking, what the fuck were we talking about at the start of this? Yep, so that's why, you know, you shouldn't have to worry about snakes in Blackpool. I was like, no, that's not it.
That's not it. Although, you shouldn't. Okay, that's my second topic, so what have you got to round us off with?
Chris, if you think of London during the Blitz in World War II, what are some of the things that come to mind?
Well, obviously, bombs dropping on London.
Yeah.
I'd say people sitting in air raid shelters singing Roll Out the Barrel. Vera Lynn on the old wireless.
Yep. So this is about the iconic images of people packed into the London Underground for shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes from Laura Penny's book Tea, Biscuits and Empire, The Long Con of Britishness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, cause I think we think of people huddled in the London Underground for safety because there weren't enough shelters as such an iconic part of that time that it's meant to evoke sort of community spirit and what they call the Blitz Spirit, sort of the British people coming together. Did you know that up until people forcibly broke into the underground, the government barricaded it up and forbade people from using it?
Wow, that's shitty.
So the British government of the 30s built far too few municipal shelters, preferring to leave it to private companies. Let me know when this rings a bell with 2020. Left it to private companies, local government councils and individuals. And when the bombs first fell, the hardest hit areas were poor immigrant and working class communities in the east end of nowhere to shelter. Now, elite clubs, sort of, gentlemen's clubs, I guess you call them, and hotels, used already existing basements to convert them into shelters. But the London Underground was barricaded by the government. But on the second night of the Blitz, when the sort of cheaply made shelters of the East End were overflowing, thousands of people overcame the barriers, broke into Liverpool Street Station and took shelter there, refusing to leave. By the time that the government actually changed its sort of official position and encouraged people to take shelter in the Underground, thousands of people were already doing it because they'd had to take it by force because they weren't safe in the homes and they weren't safe in the government-made ones. And at its peak, 177,000 people were using the London Underground to take shelter. Now, eventually, it was sort of absorbed into the propaganda effort and became part of the, I guess, iconic imagery of the war. But what history admits is that it had to be taken by force or been let down by the government.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, if there's opportunity to do the right thing, they probably won't take it.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I read this and then it made me think there's been a lot of talk about the Blitz during these past few months of lockdown. With coronavirus. The sort of talk of the British Blitz Spirit by those in charge. And you must have heard, I've had customers at work, complain that, they didn't shut the pubs during the Blitz, so why should they during the coronavirus, possibly forgetting that unlike COVID-19, bombs aren't contagious. And, if they want a more appropriate wartime analogy, then, refusing to wear a mask in public is more like leaving your lights on when the blackout warden tells you to turn them off. It's it's not for you, it's for a collective sense of decency, innit? So yeah, I just thought it was interesting that, the government initially said, no, the Underground's private property, we must protect that. And if the poor get bombed, then so be it. But then, once it's happening, then, it's the same way that, the government did not provide enough PPE, but then are now holding up the people that made homemade stuff as, a shining example of, British spirit coming together. And it's they shouldn't have to. Yeah.
I mean, not to get all political on this, but
which is what people say before they get all political, but yes.
Well, no, it's just you see the thing, that Captain Tom, who is now Sir Tom.
Yeah.
The 99-year-old who walked up and down his garden and raised millions. And I can't help but feel all the focus on him. He's had ITV specials about his life. He got promoted because he was only a lieutenant, I think, or something, back when he was in. Mm-hmm. He got an honorary promotion or something.
Yeah,
or maybe he was always a captain and he became a colonel or something.
Colonel. Yeah,
he was a captain, now he's a colonel or something. He got there was a thing, ITV special on his life and his war service and stuff on TV. There was, he's been knighted, everyone. It's no, he seems like a top bloke and everything, but I feel like everyone's missed the point. It wasn't supposed to be about one 99-year-old. It's it's structural underfunding here, where a 99-year-old felt the need to walk up and down his garden. Everyone's latched onto this story and turned him into the hero of it, instead of, because it's easier than acknowledging the fact that the only reason he needed to do that was because of government mismanagement.
10 years of austerity, that totally stripped the NHS of its budget.
It's he wouldn't need to do that because everyone would just be oh yeah, well obviously they've got the money for that. I don't know, it just seems a bit missing the point. Massively.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not to downplay his achievement.
No.
And in some ways it's good for morale to have a good cause to rally behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say.
Because when, there's those stories where, a homeless person gets, a homeless person finds a tenner, gives it back to the person, and then everybody raises, $100,000 for that one homeless person. And it's it's a feel-good story and everything, but surely it'd be better if, instead of raising $100,000 for one homeless person, we raised $10,000 each for 100 homeless people without any of them having to give back the tenner. Do you know what I mean? Everyone would choose one inspiring story, even though 10 less inspiring, but still good stories would overall be a better thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if homeless people were just taken care of in a sort of long-term strategic way.
Yeah, it would probably cost everybody less. That type of thing.
Yeah, but it's hard to make a feel-good story about that. You're right, yeah.
And like you say, like the government thing with like the Blitz and stuff, like it would have been better for everybody to just, for that to have been the plan. But then it's better to then like afterwards talk about heroic, plucky Brits. Rather than like, no, they wouldn't need to have been heroic and plucky if there were adequate air shelters or whatever. It's weird though, because like my family, my family's down, grandparents from the East End, London. They got, my gran-nan got evacuated to Devon. But then I think she got evacuated to Devon because I think there were 2 blitzes, weren't there? There was like the initial one during like the Battle of Britain, which I think is when she got evacuated to Devon, and then there was like a second one towards the end where basically the Nazis just started throwing everything they had at London just to spit in the face because like the war was basically over. It was like not over, but yeah, it was like inevitable by that stage, like 1945, because once the Russians started winning, it was like, well, this is only going to go one way. They were just prolonging it, really. Yeah, and like she was saying, I remember saying about going in like air raid shelters and stuff like that, and like don't know if she ever mentioned going down to the Tube. Some houses and stuff in London, they still have like, if they got a garden, some of them still have like air raid shelters in the back. 20 odd years ago they did. I don't know if it's changed that much in the last 20. I feel like they wouldn't.
That's fine if you've got a garden and the resources to either get a shelter or build one yourself. But most people, like, living in sort of terraces and sort of tower blocks, obviously don't have that kind of room.
I swear, like, some of the London Underground stations seem to have like massive doors that look like they're like bomb-proof things. Although, actually, maybe that's Cold War editions.
The big sort of vault doors,
yeah. It's weird, though. So by all accounts, the Blitz actually achieved nothing. Because the whole idea was it was to sap morale and also hit, like, factories and stuff in East London. But, like, it didn't do that much to damage that many factories. And by all accounts, it actually, like, improved morale. Because when it gave everybody a sort of personal stake in winning. Whereas before, apparently, like, one of Churchill's main issues was trying to like keep support for the war because they didn't see it as their fight. Like if like after Dunkirk, the war became a sort of, well, France is gone, but that's France's problem. Why don't we just let Germany have France and then we can just call it a day? Like, and so yeah, apparently a lot of Churchill's first thing was like the Blitz was like a golden opportunity to just rally people around the flag and be like, here we go, now we've all got a stake in this. And then also like the North Africa campaign was apparently mostly just to keep the war sort of going and keep momentum whilst trying to persuade the Americans to join.
Like Pearl Harbor was the catalyst to get the average American in favour of the war because they weren't in favour beforehand.
And even then it was only against American sentiments. This is the thing, like, how like you were saying, like it goes back to what you're saying about, like how they've whitewash the sort of Blitz Spirit into something that everybody was a part of. Government, right down to individuals, when really, like you say, the government wasn't that big on it until it sensed an opportunity for it. And there were plenty of people who had to be told to turn the lights off and stuff like that, and were like, nope, my freedom, my life, blah, 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 I want to go to the pub, blah, blah, blah. In the same way in America, like, now, the greatest generation or whatever is... Everybody in 1940s America was really anti-Nazi and they were always going to go over and punch Adolf Hitler. And apparently at the time, sentiment in America was mostly against avoiding war with Germany. Like Japan, they were willing to fuck up. Like, apparently in Germany, American sentiment towards Germany was neutral for the most part. It wasn't really seen as their fight. It was only because Germany, for some reason, declared war on America.
Yeah, but it is, like you say, if history is a form of propaganda in terms of, we rewrite it so that, we were always at war with Eurasia.
Yeah. Nobody wants to admit that they were
they were indifferent, yeah.
Yeah, they weren't on the winning side, if you know what I mean. And we've got the really weird thing, like the generation that didn't fight in World War II, because there's not that many of them left now. The ones that came after are usually the ones that bang on about Blitz Spirit, and it's like, at best you were 2. like you didn't really have much choice in the whole Blitz Spirit thing. Like They're like, oh yeah, well, if we could defeat the Nazi... What do you mean, we?
You soiled yourself in a shelter.
Yeah, this whole corona thing, it's like people arguing about masks. It's like the smallest possible personal sacrifice you could be asked to make. Wear a piece of cloth over your face for a few minutes at a time. Like, because people are like, oh, if you wear one all day, you get sick. It's like, who's asking you to wear one all day? Like, shop workers, maybe. But, like, I mean, like, people visiting shops, because there's always people visiting shops, not the actual shop workers who are complaining. You go in for, like, 5 minutes. Like, you're going to be fine with this cloth over your face. It's like people saying, like, oh, you'll lose all those interactions because you won't be able to look people and smile and you'll lose. It's like, who does that? Nobody fucking does that anymore. Who walks around smiling at strangers?
Psychopaths.
Psychopaths, yeah. People, no, nobody's doing that. You're really not missing out. And also, like, if you genuinely smile, like, you can see it in your eyes. So, like, again, psychopaths are the only people worried about this.
Or hold up a little placard that says, I am smiling.
Yeah, well, we always just get masks
easy.
with, like, Joker faces on.
See, as of Friday, I'm going to have to wear a mask all the time at work. And I've invested in a sort of a good replica Plague Doctor mask. You know, it's friendly, it's approachable, you know, kids like little cartoon birds. Basically like one of the penguins out of Madagascar.
Nice.
But in a Plague Doctor mask. Until HR tell me you are freaking out the customers. Have we done enough comedy, or has it been mostly grief?
It's mostly grief today.
I guess the argument is that the world is mostly grief right now.
Exactly, so let's add a little bit more. That's what people always say. When times are bleak, make them bleaker.
What do we want? More despair! When do we want it? Oh, forever. So that brings us to the end of episode 47 of Cooking with Grief. Hope you've enjoyed it, and hope you're looking forward to next time, when we'll have 4 brand new topics to excite and entice your ears. Thank you for listening, and if you want to engage with the podcast outside of the episodes, you can follow us on Twitter at Cooking with Grief with no G on cooking. Or if you've got suggestions for topics or longer feedback, you can email us at cookingwithgrief@gmail.com. And most importantly, if you could leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast, that would really help us out. It bumps our visibility up so other people can find the podcast and we can grow and make friends. I don't know, I sort of ran out of steam there. Make friends, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, let's make friends. Let's say friends.
Yeah, or acquaintances. Well, acquaintances, and then we'll go, you know, we listen to a couple of episodes, you know, we buy you dinner, and soon we make sweet love.
Podcast love.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. We'll come in your ears every 2 weeks. Thank you to Big Heads Media for hosting us and packing our packed lunches today. It was a ham sandwich, so there really is something for everyone.
Of all the things, you chose a ham sandwich, so you ruled out vegetarians, Muslims and Jews. Like, something for everyone. The least inclusive sandwich you could think of.
Sorry, I don't know why. Alright, okay, that is, yeah, not most.
I mean, I do like a good ham sandwich, don't get me wrong. Just
but most people don't.
Out. Of all the things that you could have said was for everybody, you chose something that's definitely not.
At the end of this episode, you'll hear a promo for another podcast on the same network at Big Heads Media, so give it a listen. If you like the sound of it, give them a listen too. And that's it. So it just leaves us to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me too.
And hope you're doing well, staying safe, taking care of one another. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks for episode 48.
Indeed. Goodbye.
Bye.
Did you know that a man once jumped into a bulletproof window so much that he busted it out of the frame and fell to his death? I do. Hey, I'm Nicholas Howe, and I made an improvised comedy storytelling podcast about this death and many others. Using a multiverse of me's as the catalyst, I explore the various ways people have died. I also have special guests on and freak them out about how dangerous the world is. Did you know lakes can explode? You do now. Listen to the How Will I Die podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at HWIDIEPOD.